Welcome,
Hi.
everybody, to Hollywood Kitchen. This is the final episode in my current chateau, but I will soon be moving, and 2024 will start off with a whole new location. But I am very excited and really honored today to be welcoming Katharine Kramer. She is a producer, an activist, and the daughter of director and producer Stanley Kramer. So, Katharine, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be on the last episode of this series.
Thank you. Well, in
And
this
I'm also the godchild and namesake of Katharine Hepburn. So I go by Kat because she always called herself Kat to close friends and family. So that's why it's Katharine Kat Kramer.
right?
But yeah, it's I feel like she's watching down on us.
Well, one of the questions I always like to ask when I get to speak with people like yourself is most of us have parents who do normal, everyday type jobs. Like, when did it first occur to you growing up that your dad was like one of the greatest visionaries and producers in Hollywood history? Like, when did that kind of settle in your mind and you realize that this was the case?
I get most of my memories from my mom at that time. I have, some memories of it. It seems like I always knew, but I always wanted to be in show business myself and supposedly came out looking for my Klieg light and more from the dance and music, song and dance person. I was drawn to all those performers in ballet at a very early age. So I believe that's when she shared with me his great career and his contributions as a filmmaker, but that he was not a song and dance person because it was always well known that my father couldn't carry a tune. And there was like a family joke about that. And here I come out with musical ability, and so does my sister. But yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. It seems like I just seems like I always knew who he was. And then of course, as I got older and really seriously considered being in the business and having a career producing as well as acting and performing, that's when I started to really study his work and really zone in and focus in on what his unique contributions were and the sacrifices he made. But I think it's also like my mom, because she was an actress and now she's a producer. It's like it was something that I just knew by osmosis that that the family business was show business, that we were in the industry. But I do believe it was my mom that shared all of my father's movies, and I don't believe it was him. He was really modest and never really talked about what he did.
Yeah, I recently did an interview with Sarah Karloff, and she said that her dad never spoke about his.
Yeah.
It was like it was a job. He came home, that was it. I mean, there wasn't a hey, guess what happened on the set today? That wasn't a thing.
My
So
father was exactly like that. When he would come home for dinner, he would not talk about the set or anything. And he really didn't really want me in the industry, I sensed. But I always wanted to be in it. It's like I was born always wanting the business and never considered doing anything else. And for me, I've been very specific about exploring different facets of it and learning as much as I could in the different mediums and not just being solely an actress, but that is my main, I would say if I had to choose one thing, acting and singing are my two main loves and my main profession. But it's all expression, it's all communicating.
exactly.
But
Well,
I felt he tried to shield me from the industry a lot too.
I don't blame people for that just because it is so incredibly rough
It
on
is,
people. But
yeah.
for those, sometimes I get people that watch Hollywood Kitchen and they're new to old Hollywood and they want to learn. So for those watching who maybe don't know about your dad's career, tell us about some of his groundbreaking and incredible contributions to film history.
He was the social conscience of Hollywood, the social activist voice during his eras, which were spanning from really the 40s through the 70s, but he started in the 30s. He started very young. He was a producer first, and then he became a director. He always wanted to be a director, but that was during the time of the producer's medium when the producer was the boss and the director was more the hired hand. Now it's much more of a director's medium, And there's also the auteurs, that they write, direct, and produce their own films. But he started as an editor. He actually went to NYU at a young age, and he also was a writer. So he had that background, and he used to buy properties of plays that were, on Broadway, popular plays of the day, and bring those to the screen. And he was always interested in, social justice issues, not because he wanted to be a message filmmaker, but just because he was interested in the stories of, that were happening to him growing up in Hell's Kitchen, New York. At a very young age, he was actually a protege of Eleanor Roosevelt, and he was like a pen pal with her. So, and she used to write him back letters. And he entered NYU when he was 15. So he was very, he started kind of a prodigy in a sense. Um, but his movies, his most signature films, always dealt with like racial issues, like the Defiant Ones. Home of the Brave was the first time an African American was on screen as a lead, in a lead role. Of course, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Pressure Point. These are all films that he made, those three with Sidney Poitier. And, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is really important to me because that's how my godmother became Katharine Hepburn. She became my godmother and I was named after her. And there's a whole great story around that. But that's not his most signature film. That's just a film that's so important to the culture and to society because when he made Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, interracial marriage was against the law in 16 states. And that was the same year as Loving versus Virginia, which overturned that law. And in a sense, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner really helped with that in the world, and especially in our country, helped make the law, overturn that it was illegal and make interracial marriage legal in the United States. So that's such an important contribution right there. And then he made films like Judgment at Nuremberg, which is so important, Inherit the Wind, one of my personal favorites. In fact, the play, we just had the play here in LA, at the Pasadena Playhouse, and they've reimagined it a bit. But when my father made the movie, he opened up a lot of things from the original play. And I noticed they used a lot of those same, techniques in this new stage version. Of course, it's a mad, 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 mad world, which was all these were way before my time. But this year is the 60th anniversary of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And there's a big screening coming up at the newly remodeled Egyptian Theater, um, you know, for the holidays. So all this is those are just some of his films. There's On the Beach, which was about, the end of the world. It was an anti-war film, but it was about nuclear annihilation. So with Oppenheimer out there now and new generations discovering that whole, what Oppenheimer did by creating the bomb, On the Beach was all about what would happen if the bomb was dropped, and it was based on the book On the Beach. And then films like Bless the Beasts and Children, which are more, I guess you could say, cult classics, was about gun control. But for me, it was important because it was about animal rights and wildlife, advocacy. And it was about slaughtering of the buffalo in the state of Arizona. And when he filmed the movie there, they kicked him out of the state. He was using the real buffalo, and the whole crew and cast had to go to Catalina Island to finish the rest of the movie. And so, I mean, he always had controversy from the time he started,
Wow.
just in producing, and then he was always controversial in everything he did. And he had like a record 85 Oscar nominations associated with all of his films. And, so many people in his movies won. And he has the Irving J. Thalberg Award, which is the highest honor you can get as a producer filmmaker. So it always was very apparent to me that he set a very big standard that I had to live up to, just as being a Kramer, those values. And I think that being a social activist myself, as an activist in life, and then also in looking for, stories about these issues, whether I'm making the films myself, acting in them, or presenting them for Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World, and now Shiro's for Change. I just think it's in my DNA. I don't I was never preached to by my parents or even my godmother to, because she was also involved with social issues, and she was a feminist way ahead of anybody else. She was really the first feminist. I don't know what happened with my interesting there. Um, in the movies. And so all this is just part of my DNA and part of what I grew up with. So nobody put that on me. It just comes naturally. But my father introduced me to the Rolling Stones. I'm wearing a
That's
Stones
awesome.
shirt, and I'm a huge Stones fan and have done an album of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. They're more obscure music, mostly focusing on Mick because I think he's very overlooked and underappreciated as a solo artist. He's written so many songs, the music and the lyrics that have been on his solo albums, and I took them and chose certain songs that I think I could kind of reinvent from a female point of view. And there's only one Keith Richards solo song on there, but it's all Mick and the Stones, Mick and Keith, the Glimmer Twins together. And that's something I'm really proud of. So yeah, my dad did help me, broaden my musical horizons even at an early age by giving me the music of the Rolling Stones. And but I grew up loving like Barbara Streisand and Judy Garland and musical theater. And I have that background in all of that. And that was just something I gravitated towards on my own.
That's fantastic. Tell me the story about how Katharine Hepburn became your godmother, because I'd like to lead that into making the recipe and talking about that too.
Absolutely. Well, when Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was made, and Spencer Tracy died right after that film, it was always decided when my parents got married, because I wasn't born yet, but that if I was going to be a boy, I would be named Spencer, and if I was a girl, it would be Catherine, and they would both be my godparents, but whoever I was named after would be the main one. So I came out a girl and I became Catherine, name just spell like she spells it, because people are always spelling it wrong too. It's Katharine, and there's like 100 different ways to spell Catherine. And she was known as Kate, sometimes Katie, but mostly Kat. So but when this happened, it was before Spencer passed away. He sent a note to my parents from the loser, and she sent my parents a christening dress and with a note that said, "She will always be telling them, spell it with an A." So I actually have a song called Spell It with an A, which is where I'm myself, and then I'm Auntie Kate, or that's this alter ego character I've created for my solo show based on her, and we duel over who's gonna top each other by telling people to spell it with an A. So that's actually a song I'm going to be doing live in 2024 with my new show, and I've only done it a couple times before, so it's being revamped as we speak.
When does the new
So
show?
that's how she became my godmother. And she used to always come over and drop by, and this actually pertains to the recipe. She used to drop by our house because I grew up in Beverly Hills, behind the Beverly Hills Hotel. That's where I was born, and that's the house I grew up in. Was actually a haunted house, but that's for another conversation. She used to play tennis behind the Beverly Hills Hotel, and the tennis courts that they actually had, I think it was adjoining to the hotel, but it was right like just a hop, skip, and a jump from where our house was. So she would come over at 7 in the morning to see my baby. She really wanted to see me. And then it would be the cottage cheese pancakes she used to always eat that my mom would make. And they became known as Katie's cottage cheese pancakes because I was called Katie at that time. But this was a ritual that she would come over before her tennis lesson. And the cottage cheese pancakes was something that I just was introduced to early on. And it was my mom that brought that recipe, I think, from her mom.
Oh wow, so it's
Yeah, a
a
lot of this is generational through my grandmother on my mom's side. Yes, yeah. My
that's
father was not a cook at all, so we didn't really get any recipes from him really, except maybe something that he really liked that he would introduce. But I mean, all the recipes I remember all come from my mom and grandmother's side of the family that my grandma introduced to her or something that she kind of found on her own. And there's a few that I was just thinking of this morning,
Which ones were you thinking of this morning?
besides the Katie's Christmas Delights or Holiday Delights, which are those graham cracker, brown sugar cookies I told you about, and the lobster thermidor, which is more of that was kind of like a holiday dish. My grandmother's goulash has always been a big favorite thing in our family. And then what I was thinking of was the cheese pizza that my mom used to make, which was before the crust was available. The pizza was on, she used to make them on English muffins with like, it was like spaghetti sauce or marinara with olives. So it was like a whole different kind of pizza. And that was something that was just kind of like we would just have as a snack. So I guess you could say it's a recipe. It's just something that my mom would put together. But
Right.
my mom was more of a cook, than anybody in the family. So, and she really does and still likes to cook. So she's the one that really introduced all this. But it comes from her mom. Yeah, not from her father's side. This is all from my grandmother on her side.
Well, I love the generations passing down recipes. I think that's really
I do too. Yeah.
So we're going to start with making the pancakes. I just feel
Gonna
that
be so cool because I mentioned the honey butter hot is something that makes it more like a dessert, but really these pancakes can be used for any kind of meal as a side dish. It doesn't They can be a breakfast holiday like pancakes, but they can also be used for lunch or just snacks during the day or even maybe something at dinner, all depending on if you use fruit with it or honeydew or, there's just different things you can put with it, cantaloupe, berries. There's just a lot of experimentation that can go on with it.
I love versatile dishes that can double for many things. So I've got your recipe printed out here. It says the ingredients are 3 eggs, one small cup of cottage cheese,
Yes.
2 tablespoons of oil, which we have right here. And then we have 4 tablespoons of whole wheat flour with a pinch of salt. So it says your instructions say to beat the eggs until light and frothy. So I've got my mixing bowl here. I'm gonna beat the eggs.
Okay,
So
now remember, this is all like kind of improv. I mean, this is the basic recipe, but it can be changed or added to.
right.
And I think maybe I put half a cube of butter or a fourth cup. I think, where did I have that? It could be a whole cube. It doesn't just have to be a half. Because they can get very runny and they are supposed to be very thin, but we don't want it to be mushy or anything.
When you
They
say
need
the
to
butter,
be formed as a pancake.
do I put the butter in the pan here or do I put it in the mix with the eggs?
That's a good question because it's been done both ways. I would try it in the pan maybe.
Okay, I've got a little butter in there already. Okay, the eggs are pretty
Nice.
frothy at this point. Okay, so we're gonna add our 1 cup of cottage cheese right here. We're gonna add this in the
That
mix.
makes it the cottage cheese pancakes.
Yeah, right. Put the cottage cheese in the mixing bowl. Okay. And then the oil and a pinch of salt. So we'll add the oil here. Okay. Salt. All right. And now add flour and mix until smooth. So I have got 4 tablespoons of wheat flour right here.
Okay.
Gonna put that in. And by the way, to go with this, I got applesauce, but I love berries a lot. So I got
I
blackberries and raspberries.
Yeah, because I heard this weird thing. I don't even remember who told me. Maybe it was my mom that some applesauce was being recalled at some of the markets
Oh,
just
yikes.
recently. So that's why I would suggest. I know it's interesting to try it with that, but maybe for safety purposes, just the berries.
Yeah,
I love berries myself. That's what I would do as a preference.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know what it is about the applesauce. There's a lot of things being recalled during the season, but that was one of them, which I thought was very bizarre and very unfortunate for this.
Let me ask you this because cottage cheese is just inherently lumpy. Like,
Yes.
is there any world in which you get the lumps out, or is that just not avoidable or unavoidable?
Um, well, the salt and the oil, and then they add the flour and mix until smooth, and then use no more than a fourth uh of the batter at a time. I
Okay.
think you just keep, you know, mixing it till it gets smooth.
Quite the arm workout today for me. Sometimes I use the on camera my electric mixer, but the problem is it makes all sorts of noise, so it's
Oh,
kind of
well, that might be interesting. Do you want to try that?
yeah. Let me go try
Yeah,
that
yeah.
fast. Just a sec.
You have exactly the berries I would use.
What if mine's think alike? Thank goodness I did not pack my electric mixer yet. So
That's so cute. Yeah, I love it.
let me.
I think that that's fine to use. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna pardon the loud noise
It's
here.
okay.
I'm gonna
We were using that too, I recall.
okay, try to see how this works for me.
So far, no noise.
I'm sorry.
So far, no noise.
Oh, it must be muting the noise while
Yeah,
I'm.
yeah, yeah.
That's good. You don't have to listen to the
Good.
traffic. Okay, so I use the electric mixer.
Hmm. Did it work?
I think it did. Let me kind of show you what the batter looks like here.
Yeah, that looks good. I still
Okay,
see the cottage cheese in there.
so now I'm going to heat up my hot plate here. Oh, plugging it in would probably help. Hang on. Okay, now we'll heat up the hot plate.
I would
And
think adding flour is going to help make it smooth. And, you want it to be golden brown, I mean, they have to look like pancakes. They look a little different anyway because they're cottage cheese, but they need to have a pancake look.
okay, give me a
Probably
sec.
doesn't affect the taste. It just makes it a pancake.
Were these pancakes something you ate at the holidays or something you would have eaten any time of the year?
Mostly at the holidays, but any time of year depending on when we felt like it.
One of the reasons I wanted to make this recipe out of all the ones you sent was because it was unique.
It's
Because I
unique.
have made goulash, I have made some other things, but this was like, I have never heard of cottage cheese pancakes. So I thought,
It's
ooh,
wild, isn't it? Yeah.
very different, but I love to try new things. So this will be interesting to see how this works. Sorry, the heating thing takes just a minute. I'm gonna put a tiny bit more butter in here just to get it going.
I think that's wise.
And what holiday traditions did you have in your family when you were growing up?
Um, well, mostly Christmas. I mean, my father was Jewish, but we did celebrate Hanukkah, but he wasn't Orthodox. He wasn't big on any kind of holiday for some reason. So we just would celebrate both. But but for the most part, just Christmas has been very much a tradition. And it changes from year to year, but like sometimes we'd have a big tree, sometimes we would have a smaller tree. Um, but it was always like Christmas Eve. A lot of times we would open the presents on Christmas Eve, then it would switch to Christmas Day. But there was always like a big focus on Christmas Eve, basically. And then there
Right.
was some New Year's Eve, like my mom always makes the drink of human kindness, which is every year it's a different kind of a drink that she creates. So that's also another kind of family tradition recipe. Um, and we really make that time between, Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's a very important time. But so is Thanksgiving. So, it just, the holidays itself are very important to us.
I like the drink of human kindness idea because I think given a lot of horrible stuff going on in our world today, we could all use compassion and kindness.
Yes, it does. And it helps with your New Year's resolutions too. And that's usually I try to do to drink it or just make my own now or whatever, but she still does that. She every year right before midnight. So it's like it could be within an hour before the new year.
Okay.
But it's very traditional on New Year's Eve, just like we really try to make Christmas Eve the big celebration.
So we're starting to get some sizzle here in the skillet. So you said about 1/4 cup, right? Roughly.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of have to eyeball it here, but let's see.
This is what's been written down in the family traditional cookbook thing. So I don't know. We'll see how it turns out.
I just love that idea though of the traditions and
Yes,
the
yes.
recipes and families because
There's even a few more that my dad really liked, like coffee ice cream was his favorite. We would put Grand Marnier and burnt coconut. That was like one of the holiday desserts that
yeah.
he kind of brought in. But basically, these were the main dishes, and then there's like a few, like cinnamon toast, but that's kind of a common thing. These are the more unique that only my mom had the recipe type things that we were used to.
Did anyone in your family make the coffee ice cream or was it something that you bought?
No, it was store bought. Yeah.
Because when I was a little girl, my grandpa used to make homemade ice cream
Wow.
with the
That
cream,
sounds great.
rock salt. And as
Yeah.
an adult, I started really missing it. And I started creating my own ice creams. So I have a Cuisinart gadget and I love making it for friends and for
That
parties.
sounds great. Maybe I should try that.
It's a
I'm
lot of
just
fun.
learning to cook. I'm not my mom. I'll admit I'm not really very good at any of that. So
I'm kind of
it's
learning.
it's something, it's a goal for the future.
And
Yeah.
the ice cream is fun because you can add alcohol or nuts or fruit or you can customize it. And it's so much fun. And like I like to do that during lockdown for a lot of my friends'
Oh
kids.
yeah.
Makes people
Yeah.
happy. And I like the idea that I'm kind of keeping one of my grandpa's things alive. And okay, we're
That
starting
is
to
great.
here. I better open my window because my smoke alarm is very loud here.
She used to always make homemade eggnog too, but we, I prefer the store-bought kind.
Oh
But
yeah.
eggnog is like my favorite thing for the holidays. She would take like I think it was just like regular milk with nutmeg and honey and make kind of like a homemade, actually a lot less calories and not quite as sweet as regular eggnog, but I prefer the real thing.
I do have a Robert Mitchum eggnog recipe, but it's like
Yeah,
98% bourbon with like a
I
splash of.
can imagine.
Well, one of these days I will get to that one because it almost begs for being
And
made.
I like eggnog both ways, but I prefer it without any alcohol, just as a dessert.
Oh, same. Well, this pancake's looking really good. Let me
Wow,
change.
okay. Oh, it looks great. Yeah, it looks golden.
Oh, okay. I
And
can tell
it
my
may lose its
outside
shape.
is not
I can
toast.
see it there. Yeah. Okay, great, cool.
I still got to cook a little more on the underside. Sorry, I'm
That
just
looks perfect. That looks great.
trying to make sure the smoke
You would
alarm.
usually make like three at a time. We would have like three on a plate, and there
Okay.
would always be seconds.
Oh, wow.
And you weren't even really aware it was cottage cheese, I mean, the way it was blended.
Yeah, another recipe I've come across in doing these that I thought was kind of interesting was sour cream chocolate cake. There's
Oh, that's wild. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
there's a
not a
recipe
bad
for that
actually.
attributed to both Clark Gable and Jerry Lewis. And every year at
Okay.
the Oscar season, I do what I call my Oscar cook along,
Oh,
where we
wow.
have a theme and everybody makes a recipe of an Oscar winner or nominee, and we all talk about them on Zoom and get together and stuff.
Right.
My friend Christina Rice, she's an Anne Dvorak biographer, and she made Clark Gable's sour cream chocolate cake one year for the cook along, and her kid loved it so much. The daughter requests it now every year for her birthday.
Wow.
Her daughter, his name,
How is it attributed to Jerry Lewis as well?
yeah, I found it attributed to Jerry Lewis in another cookbook. So whether or not some of these stars made these is, of course, highly debatable. But to me, I kind of use it as a jumping off point to talk about their lives and who they were as people. So
Yeah.
even if they didn't cook, like I know Joan Crawford cooked, Vincent Price cooked, but even if some of the stars didn't, I still think it's a fun way to look at them, you know?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I never would have thought sour cream and chocolate cake. That's
Yeah.
an
Sounds
unexpected.
interesting. I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah, I'll send you the
I
recipe.
would love that. Yeah.
Okay, here's what it looks like.
Really? That is so cool. So are you gonna actually be brave and try the applesauce or just the berries?
You know, I have to get on a plane tomorrow, and yeah, I think it's probably in the best interest of everybody to just try the
Yeah. As
berries.
Katharine Hepburn would say, Katie's cottage cheese pancakes are my favorite.
You do the best impression of her I've ever heard in
Yeah,
my.
it just comes naturally, and that's why I've created this character. Kind of like Lily Tomlin has Ernestine, I've created Auntie Kate for my own godmother.
Wow. So when are you doing your show in 2024, by the way? I would
I
love.
don't have the venue yet because I have two shows. I have one called My Duet with Mick, which is obviously about wanting to sing a duet with Mick Jagger, and that show's being retooled. And then I have one called Crescent Drive, which I'm writing, which is about growing up in this house on Crescent Drive, which is where these cottage cheese pancakes were made, and it's a haunted house. And of course, Auntie Kate pops up in both shows as a character and kind of an alter ego. But in Crescent Drive, she's actually, I recreate her coming over to visit me in the house, and Crescent Drive is a street that still
Oh
exists,
yeah.
and the house is still there. So I haven't gone back to visit, since moving back to LA, but once the show is out there, I think I will pay them a visit and see if they've had any, supernatural, paranormal, metaphysical, ghostly experiences.
You
It's really
must
more of a Halloween, geared more for the Halloween time.
you must keep me posted about
I
this.
will,
Absolutely.
will for sure.
All right. I am going to get a fork. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to put a few berries on here and I am going to try the cottage cheese
That's
pancake.
going to be so cool. And there, I sent something to you that talked about creamed meat. I don't really know. That was just something that my mom had mentioned, or seafood. I think one of my, uh, one of her friends may have tried it that way, but for the most part, it's more of a dessert dish. So this is great. I can't wait to see your reaction.
All right. To
Okay, here we go.
Katharine Kramer,
I'm eating it
her
with you.
family, and to Katharine Hepburn.
Yes, to Auntie Kate.
Mm.
And it's good, okay, without any kind of like honey sauce?
I do have some Manuka honey in my cupboard.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Why don't we try and see?
ah,
Because it can be, I don't know how much salt you would like on it. I don't think putting salt on it is good, but just to give it more flavor, maybe the honey is good.
a little bit of the honey here and kind of put that on as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That kind of takes the place of the honey butter.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna eat some more of this.
As Auntie Kate would say, I'm coming back for seconds and thirds.
Hmm. So tell me about some of your memories of Auntie Kate. So she loved the pancakes. She came over after her like 7 a.m. tennis matches, which I totally
Yeah, I still remember walking by as a toddler or even younger and watching her practice. The famous story goes when I first really got to know who she was, she would she came over, and once she knocked on the door, and I wouldn't let her in, and I finally said, "Who are you?" And she goes, "I'm Kate." And I said, "Me too." Slammed the door right in her face. So that's a story that I vaguely remember that's made the rounds of family stories. That I was just as feisty and Kate, and had her kind of persona even at a young age before I really knew her. And she was very athletic, very playful. She used to come, and I would try to tie her up with the rope, and she would always be able to, you know, she was very strong, but I actually tried to tie her up in the living room, right up there at Crescent Drive.
Mm.
I have a lot of stories of visiting her in New York, and then her coming up to visit us because I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I moved from Beverly Hills at a very young age, and my sister and I grew up in Bellevue, which is a suburb of Seattle, and she used to visit us up there too. And so there's just a lot of stories, and I'm writing in my own memoir about her. And some of those stories might make it into the show. We'll see. It's a cross between being a fantasy and being autobiographical. So I have a little bit of both, but it's not totally autobiographical. It's a little heightened. So we'll see what ends up in there.
Okay.
Uh,
I ate my whole
It's a
pancake.
lot of soul searching and going into my memories. Yeah, you ate the whole thing. Isn't
In
that
fact,
great?
I'm gonna make more while we chat.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
There was always, like I said, three or four that my mom would do. And sometimes syrup, we would just put the honey butter as a topping, warm, really made it like its own syrup. But you could use like traditional maple syrup on it too,
oh yeah.
or just honey buttered, like, or white honey.
Well, let me
Just honey was always a big thing with my mom. She loved putting honey into things
tell me
instead of
about,
sugar. So
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
instead of sugar, she would always put honey.
tell me about your mom and your mom's career as well,
My
because
mom is amazing. She's also my producing partner. We have K&K Productions Inc. And she oversees my screening series, Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World. And now I'm launching Sheroes for Change podcast and festival. I've already sort of been doing it a little bit with Kat Kramer's Films That Changed the World. It's been like a theme, but this festival is going to be like, and the podcast is only going to be focused on women's issues, female focused films, filmmakers, female centric, whoever has the spotlight at the moment. I might add books and music. I'm going to eventually, but for the most part, it's going to be focused on documentaries and films because there's so many out there that have the issues that we really need to address. So, but my mom was an actress. She's an award-winning actress. And when she met my father, she kind of put that part of her career behind her. She had me and my sister, and she did end up producing with him on a lot of his later films, but she didn't always get the credit, which I think she should have. It was a different time when people didn't really, wives were either partners of the creator, but they didn't really fight for that. But if it had been me, I would have insisted on the producing credit. But she was also a casting director on a lot of his films, just because she had that background, and so she got credited on that. But she's a Golden Globe winner, she's an Emmy nominee, and she starred in as a guest star in like over 100 television shows of like all through the 50s and 60s. Bonanza, Wild Wild West. She was on I Dream of Jeannie, the pilot episode. And then the second episode, she was Larry Hagman's fiance, Melissa Stone. But I think she and the producers and the writers of the show felt that her character would be too much competition, and she would be too much competition for Barbara Eden as Jeannie. So my mom actually said, I don't want to play a second lead on a series. Either I'm the lead or I'm in every single episode. So she wasn't really happy with how it was going to develop. So she said, please write me off the show. But she still gets so much fan mail and recognition just from being on the original, pilot and second episode of I Dream of Jeannie. And I can see where that character would have worked throughout the series, you know.
Definitely.
And she did work with Jerry Lewis in The Disorderly Orderly. She did work with Robert Mitchum in Man with a Gun. The High and the Mighty was really her breakthrough role. And she, she just did so many movies and television shows. She was constantly working from the time she started. So, and now she's a producer and she oversees my father's legacy, and I also do that with her, but we develop our own projects. And she's been managing my career and overseeing a lot of, the content that I'm putting out there or whatever projects I'm taking on. Not always from the acting standpoint, because that's sometimes I'm acting in somebody else's project and I'm not a producer on it. But for the most part, I like to produce as much as I can to be involved with that, the overall project if I'm acting in it. And then also my music career, she doesn't really have much of a background in music other than she knew a lot of singers in her life. So she oversees that part too, more from a managerial standpoint. So we are a show business run family with the production company.
The films that you are working on developing, where can people see them? Are they going to be on streaming platforms? Are they going to be on different film festivals or in theaters?
Yeah, I've been in a bunch of movies, just since the pandemic that came out on streaming platforms. And there's an indie film, a couple of them that are coming out. They're on the festival circuit. And of course, I'm in the Call Me Kate, Katharine Hepburn documentary that was done, which actually came out on her birthday in May of this year. And it's on Netflix, Netflix USA, Netflix Canada, and I think it's also in the UK. But that's still on Netflix, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from that. And I'm probably going to be presenting that. I want to present that for Sheroes for Change, which was supposed to launch this year, but because of the strikes and all the, just all the unrest that was happening in the industry, and of course COVID was continuing, I've decided to launch it in 2024, which is actually better because it's an election year, and all these women's issues are on the ballot, and I just think it's better to do it in that year. So that's going to be interesting because I curated all the films for the first year. Most of them are new, but some of them are going to be older documentaries or films that came out maybe a couple of years ago that not everybody saw. So we can revisit the issues and the women that are the focus of the documentaries, like something like Call Me Kate, which not everybody has seen unless they get Netflix. And, I'm going to use that as an example of a Shiro who really made change and who we still look to as a role model. There's a film about Mary Pickford I'm also going to be showing, which is not a new film, but it's a film that is going to be re-released in Europe. And Mary Pickford is still, a role model for everyone in the film industry, and especially for me in terms of what I'm doing with Sheroes for Change. But they're not just going to be documentaries about women that are in the film industry. It's women making a difference in many professions and on a global scale. And a lot of them, like the two Bellas, I was interested in these two documentaries that are both right now up for Oscar consideration, and they're both called Bella. So I thought that was so almost like coming to me as a unique gift. One of them is about Bella Abzug, who I actually knew. I met her, a few years before she passed away. And she was a real trailblazer, a politician, a social activist. She was born the year that women got the right to vote, so that really motivated her. And she was a real pioneer and paved the way for so many. And that film has gotten a lot of buzz. And then the other movie is called Bella, is about Bella Lewitsky, who was a pioneer in dance, a choreographer. She was an outspoken arts advocate. She was also blacklisted early in her career, but that didn't stop her from really defining dance on the West Coast. and where Bella Lewitsky, and they both have passed away. So we're looking at, two women named Bella, one on the East Coast, which was Bella Abzug, mainly made a difference, I would say, nationwide, but a lot of her work was on the East Coast. And then Bella Lewitsky, who was such a pioneer on the West Coast, and to be behind both these films and moderate the Q&As and, really champion these two films that are both competing for an Academy Award nomination and for awards consideration now. And then in the spring to be able to bring them to my festival where, all that competition is kind of behind us. I'm the only person that has an interest and has been advocating for these two movies called Bella. So I just thought that was an interesting thing that Sheroes for Change has already evolved into that, and I haven't even launched it yet, really. And to have the Katharine Hepburn documentary, which I'm in, be part of the festival, I'm just really excited about how that's going to evolve.
I wonder what Katharine Hepburn would think if she were around right now.
I don't know, but she'd probably be asking to be in a sequel to Mad World. It's a mad, 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 mad world. Or still a mad world. And she, yeah, what would she think? I know. What would she think of of the movie that was done about her?
Oh, this is true.
Yeah. And I also, besides being interviewed in it, I did voiceover, but I didn't do her. I could have done her because I do her, but they hired an older actress who I believe actually lives in Connecticut or lives back east, and she narrated things and was pretending to be her, but people were, there was so much real footage in there that when you see it, people weren't even sure if that was her or the sound alike. But I did do some voiceover narration and stories, and so I was happy to be able to contribute both ways. But I gave a lot, I have to say, a lot of material and stories in the interview that didn't end up in the documentary. So maybe that'll be in part two or that'll be on the special features. But I'd love to be able to screen that, the full interview.
Oh, definitely. I just feel like I went to an event a few years ago where they were having famous actors or people in the industry read obituaries of notable women from the New York Times that got left out of the New York Times when these women originally passed away. And now the New York Times in the past few years has started publishing, or for the first time, a lot of these obituaries. And it just struck me how many incredible women are out there and how many stories that are still waiting to be told.
But that's why I'm also hoping that She Rose for Change, that I'll be able to make documentaries because I am actually involved with, well, my father got I'll backtrack to him and tell this story. My father got the first star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the first completed star in 1960. This was in the New Walk, and I know that Joanne Woodward also has been credited for having the first star, but it was really my father, and it's even up on their website. And this was even before they had the big ceremonies. But so I've always been very drawn to the Hollywood Walk of Fame and nominating people and making sure that, deserving individuals get their star. And it's a much more complicated process than people realize, but I've been effective with a couple. But my first posthumous one, I actually am involved with and helped get Juanita Moore, her posthumous star, which was announced a couple of years ago, and the ceremony will happen in 2024. And I'm working with her family on a docu-series about her and a lot of the African American performers that were part of her inner circle when she was, making her mark. And she actually worked for my father. Juanita Moore did two movies for my father that oddly enough, she didn't really get credited for, which I think is, a huge oversight considering who my father was and what he advocated for. So I feel a responsibility that her being a Black woman, and having worked for him besides Imitation of Life and her, so many movies that she did that she's more known for, but we're doing this docu series about her, and she would be also a shiro that, like the other ones that I'm focusing on that are known, but they're kind of their contributions have been overlooked. So that's part of what I'm doing with Shiros for Change is shedding a light on and shining a spotlight on women that have made huge contributions, like Katharine Hepburn, like Mary Pickford, and then ones that have made contributions like Juanita Moore that still people are finding out who she is, so the new generations know what she did and that she gets her due. So that's another example of how Shiros for Change is becoming an entity that's also going to be making films and making docuseries, not just presenting movies that are already in existence. And so I'm really proud to be involved with that. And we have a nonprofit. It's called Forget Me Not Juanita Moore Productions, and that's just now being established now this month. So I'm happy to talk about it with you because it hasn't really been formally announced yet.
Well, this is fantastic. I've always thought she was just an incredible actress, and I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
happy to hear that she is getting some well-deserved attention. So will you please keep me posted about anything?
Yes. Because I can find out, and maybe we can have her nephew and her grandniece on with family recipes. Because that's I'm working directly with her family. And we've been so diligent to try and make everything happen because she was announced for the Star 2 years ago, and you only have a little bit of window of time to have the ceremony. So the goal is to have it around her birthday in October of 2024. And I know it'll happen because she's so deserving. And it's the first time I've had a posthumous star that I've helped nominate. So I will definitely keep you posted on that as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So happy to hear about that.
An Imitation of Life, it's always on TCM, and they just had it at the Egyptian Theater, which is where Mad World's going to be this coming Friday, since they remodeled the Egyptian. And I know you know how great it looks.
I was really skeptical because I'm such a preservation-minded person when I heard Netflix was taking over. But I went recently and I've got to hand it to them. I was mightily impressed with what I saw.
Yeah, well, we're really excited to be there on Friday for the big anniversary. There's going to be a lot of surprises, and it's going to be great. And my mom went to so many premieres at the Egyptian, back in the day. So I have a feeling of it's going to feel just like that time, right? They've kind of preserved that feeling of what it was like when they had the big premieres back, even like the 50s or 60s.
Definitely. And
Excited about it.
they put a lot of love and a lot of dedication and hard work into that building.
Yeah, it's got a magical energy around it.
It really does. It absolutely does have that.
Oh wow, I see the what we've been
I'm
chatting with
cranking
me
these out. I really
before.
am. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And let's
So
see.
how was it with the honey? Is it the same kind of flavor? Because I'm like I said, I'm only used to it with the honey butter.
Without the honey. I know friends think I'm weird, but when I eat pancakes, I almost never use syrup. I kind of like
Yeah.
when it's butter and fruit, personal opinion.
Or
But
just put butter on it. Yeah, butter and fruit. Yeah, that sounds great.
yeah, but they are looking fantastic. And I
They
probably
look
will
great.
a lot
Wow.
of these after we get off camera.
You've motivated me now. I'm gonna have this coming up for Christmas. I think I'm gonna insist that I have this.
Yeah. So which one of your mom's and your dad's films is your all-time favorite, like your touchstone of the
Oh gosh. My mom has been in so many movies. Well, The High and the Mighty, because that's where she won her Golden Globe. So I guess that's my favorite. Yeah, like I said with my father, there's so many I don't really have a favorite. I just have ones like Bless the Beasts and Children. I reimagined the song from it because I'm an animal rights activist and a wildlife advocate. And, I've been able to sing it at different important moments within the wildlife community. And it's become an anthem for certain organizations and nonprofits. And it's been released as a single. So, that film, Bless the Beasts and Children, will always be important to me, not just because of the movie, but because of the song. I just don't have, a number one favorite. but I guess it would be Guess Who's Coming to Dinner if I had to pick. And then Mad World and Inherit the Wind and On the Beach. I presented a film called Fallout, a documentary about how my father made the movie, and my mom's interviewed in that. So that's, you know, the movie itself is depressing, obviously, but it's such an important part of his filmography. There's so many movies. He made 35 films, so it's so hard to pick one.
Oh, definitely. And I'm just so gratified to see that these movies are still getting shown all the time on TCM, that they're getting
Oh
shown.
yeah.
It's so wonderful to know that they're still in circulation and hopefully reaching new generations.
I don't even have a favorite Katharine Hepburn film other than obviously Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Stage Door, Lion in Winter. Of course, On Golden Pond is one of my favorites.
Multiple Hollywood kitchens on Katharine Hepburn, because there are some stars that you do one episode on, you talk about him, and you feel like I've pretty much covered this one, either career-wise, personally, whatever it is. But she's one of those stars that, like, I could talk about her every single day of the week,
Oh yeah.
her career, and I'm still going to have things to discuss, things to think about. And she is the gift that will never, ever stop giving.
When I do my stand-up routine, because I went into stand-up, slightly different than my solo show, but I combine the two disciplines. She always pops into my stand-up, and even sometimes she'll say something or make a comment or a joke, and I won't even be ready for it. So it's like she has a life of her own that I've created this alter ego. And I can say anything that I can't say personally through her too, which could be kind of provocative, but that is what I'm going to do in the future. And I'm also the West Coast representative for the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center, back in Connecticut, and I'm also an honorary trustee. So one of my goals, because there's a theater there, obviously, and it would be to perform my solo shows there, and I do plan to do that in the next couple years. I told them that I'm gonna make that a goal now that the pandemic is sort of under control, because I was on my way to do that, and then we got everything stopped because of the pandemic. But now that we're kind of coming out of that and it's here to stay, we have to make the best of it. That is going to be a future goal in the near future. So I'll definitely keep you posted on that.
Thank you. Did you ever have Katharine Hepburn's brownie recipe, by the way? Because I have made that countless times.
I have to check. I think my mom has that for me because of Catherine Houghton, her niece. She might have given it to us.
That's one of those recipes. Like I said, when I first started doing these episodes during lockdown, people would always write me and say, "Oh, they didn't make that." Well, I know Katharine Hepburn made it. Like that much, I 100% know that.
Yeah.
Legit.
There was
So
also a quiche. I think I wrote that there was a quiche that she used to like. And when she visited me and my family up in Seattle, Washington, when she was up there, she wanted this other quiche recipe that we were working on. And I have to ask my mom how that whole story evolved. But, quiche is kind of a big thing in our family too. And there was some different recipes that have been passed on through the years, but they were not originated by my grandmother. But I know that she was interested in this one quiche. So I think I sent that to you. But this is the one, the cottage cheese pancakes. It's like very synonymous with the holidays, very synonymous with our family, and something that we used to have all the time regularly, pretty much. So we have to get back to that tradition.
I love tradition. It is so much fun. And, I'm surprised how much these are making. I'm looking at the batter going, I still got a couple more.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it can make a lot, right? You can make like a whole it's like for a family or for guests. Yeah.
I mean, my griddle and skillet are fairly small, so I'm just kind of making one pancake per, you
And
know.
little small ones you can make. I know my mom used to make like mini ones. Yeah, she would make like the regular size, and there would be like these tiny mini pancakes. And they were actually their own pancake. It wasn't cut from the pancake. Looks like you did a great job with that.
Thank you. I'll send you the final picture because I'll have
Yes,
a
yeah,
picture of Kate.
yeah. Go ahead and post it.
Yeah.
Great.
And
I'm going to do everything I can to get into the holiday spirit because I'm still not in it yet, but I will be.
yeah, I I used to be like Martha Stewart. I would make homemade sugar cookies and decorate them and drop
Oh,
them off
yeah.
with cards and gifts. The last few years, I might text an emoji to people. I've kind of gone from one extreme to the other extreme, and this Christmas finds me having to move. So
Oh
I'm
my goodness. Are you happy about it or mixed feelings?
of a complicated situation, but it's at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be the last episode, where you
And
are now. I think that's very traditional.
thank you. But I am going to start it again, the series in the new year, and I'll be in
Yeah.
a different location and things will be different, but it will be good
Yeah.
still. And it's just such a joy to help keep people's legacies alive, to help keep people's films alive, and to help discuss and enlighten people about these incredible artists. That's really kind of what gets me out of bed
Well,
every.
I'd love to have like a Katharine Hepburn retrospective that I can host. I'm looking to do that maybe at the Egyptian. I think I should do it, pitch that. You heard it here first.
I will be there
Yeah,
like
please be there.
rice, basically. Yes, I will be there for that. Because
Yeah.
the thing about her
And
career,
she'll be there in spirit.
there's so many chapters of it. I mean,
I
there's
know.
endless amounts of chapters of Katharine Hepburn's life and career. It's fascinating.
It is, yeah. Plus, she always said she had two different birth dates. So, but we know she was a Taurus. It used to be that she was a Scorpio, and then it came out she was a Taurus. So she was always so full of surprises as a person, too, very much what you would expect.
Yeah, I have to ask you your thoughts on this. Normally, when they make movies about movie stars, I have a tendency to completely avoid those things because I feel like I'm way too close to it. And if I watch that stuff, I'm going to get frustrated or be like, they weren't like that. But when I did see The Aviator, I thought Kate Blanchett nailed it. I was like, okay, I got to give it to her. That was absolutely fantastic.
I have a great story about that too. So I get behind movies and performances, even separate from my screening series or Sheroes for Change. And I actually could do it professionally, but I've been just doing it from my heart and getting behind certain performances. But I decided I was going to campaign for her for Best Supporting Actress and get behind it early on. And I went a step further. There's the AIDS dress that I forgot where it is now, but it was a few years ago that everybody had signed. They had a male outfit and then they had a female dress. And of course, Katharine Hepburn had signed it. So I hosted a reception for Kate Blanchett just a few days before the Oscars. And she signed the dress under right next to where my godmother signed it with a special pen. There's photographs of all this. It was at the Hotel Bel Air in a special suite. Getty Images even came and took pictures. And then I had like a little party for her, a little reception, and I gave her one of the petticoats from the christening dress that my godmother had sent my parents for me, and I gave it to her and I said, this will bring you good luck and I just know you're going to win the Oscar. She didn't think she was going to. So she did end up winning Best Supporting Actress for playing Kate. And then she gave that christening dress, or she christened one of her children in it. And this made it into one of the, it might have been the Inquirer, I don't know, but just this story, it made it into one of the Hollywood tabloids and into like the trades. So yeah, I've remained friendly with her ever since. And she was born to play, I just feel she was born to play my godmother. And other people have tried, but I just don't, I feel that she really was channeling her. And I even noticed that she's kind of imbued with the Katharine Hepburn spirit in other roles that she does.
And I think too, with she's very much an activist as well. She's
Yes. Yeah.
outspoken, she's stylish, she's intelligent. Like, I mean, very rarely do I feel like a modern day star compares to a classic film star because I feel like a lot of times there's no way. But I feel like Kate Blanchett is the closest thing we have in the world today to a Katharine
I
Hepburn.
do too. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a memory I'll always cherish. And I actually wore the dress. I wore the dress for the reception for her. It was a private at the Hotel Bel Air, as I mentioned, and she signed it with me wearing it, and it has like a train. I'll try and find those pictures, but it was a very special memory. And she did carry that with her to the Oscars. So yeah, and I'm really hoping that people see the Call Me Kate documentary, because even though there was a little bit of controversy from the family and some of them are in it, what's this going to be about? The filmmaker Lorna Tucker, I really think she did a great job giving us a new perspective of Kate, Kat, as I call her, and making, new generations see that she was a human being and not just the persona. So I was happy to be part of it.
And people can find Call Me Kate on Netflix right now.
Yes.
Excellent.
I'll let you know if it's on any other platforms, but so far that's where it debuted and I have not seen it anywhere else.
This is my sixth pancake.
Gosh, yeah. See,
I'm gonna
that's
feel
exactly
bad.
what the recipe is for making multiple pancakes.
Well, this has been a wonderful
Yeah,
conversation. I'm
I
so
enjoyed it too, and I'm in the Christmas spirit now. I'm definitely ready for the holidays and the pancakes.
well, thank you so much. This was a tremendous honor to get to speak with you today.
Thank you so much.
And please stay tuned, everybody, for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.